Hello there. My name is Gran Scotto Sniffelheimer.
I'm Sir Benadigan.
And I'm Patience Goodkind. We're here to talk to you about militia and their role in the American Revolution. But first, here's some background on the American Revolutionary War.
In the second half of the 1700s, tension between Britain and its colonies in America was building. Conflicts arose when British Parliament unfairly taxed its American citizens. Ever heard of the Boston Tea Party? What about the Intolerable Acts? These were situations where Britain tried to unfairly gain control of its American colonies. As a result, the colonists protested and led boycotts. This is where militia and Minutemen come in. Colonists in America had organized militia upon migrating to America, mainly as a defense against Native American attacks. However, as Indian threat decreased, militias became somewhat laughable. Be careful not to get confused. Minutemen, militia, and the Continental Army were separate divisions. Most colonies required free, white, able-bodied men to own guns and attend training. They were only called to service in local emergencies and are referred to as militia. Minutemen were typically 25 years of age or younger. They were chosen for their enthusiasm, reliability, and physical strength. Usually about 1/4 of the militia served as Minutemen. They were the first to arrive or await at battle. They chose the name Minutemen because they could be ready for battle in 60 seconds. Militia were different from the Minutemen because they were regularly paid fighters instead of just on call like the Minutemen. The difference between the two is sort of like the difference between a paid fire department and a volunteer fire department. The militia were usually better trained and more experienced in combat, whereas the Minutemen were ready to defend their particular area if necessary. Each state militia was in charge of the defense of its own state. If you look beyond the state militia, there was the Continental Army under the command of George Washington that fought across all the colonies. The primary weapons used by all three groups were flintlock muskets, bayonets, cannons, and occasionally rifles. Both guns took time to load safely, but rifles took longer. Cannons were hard to use because they took many people to operate. When General Washington and the Continental Army were camped at Valley Forge, they practiced loading and firing cannons until it became second nature. After Britain passed a set of taxes, which the colonies called the Intolerable Acts, 100 barrels of gunpowder and 16 cannons were stolen from British Fort Ticonderoga. Soon, similar thefts sprang up all over the countries. The Intolerable Acts were bringing the two countries to the brink of war.
The Minutemen are most associated with the two famous battles of Lexington and Concord. On April 18, 1775, British General Gage marched 700 troops towards Concord to seize American weapons and supplies. American spies saw this and told Paul Revere and William Dawes, who rode through the Massachusetts countryside, warning,
"The British are coming! The British are coming!"
"Oh no!"
Okay.
The Minutemen gathered quickly at Lexington, a village on the way to Concord. Their captain, John Parker, made this famous statement, "Stand your ground. Don't fire unless fired upon. But if they mean to have a war, let it begin here." As the British came into view through early morning mist, Captain Parker's words became true. An unknown someone fired a shot, causing all the troops to rush into battle. 8 Minutemen were killed, and the rest pushed back into the forest. But they weren't defeated yet. The British pushed on to Concord, but were too late. The colonists had hidden the weapons and supplies. Militiamen from the surrounding countryside had gathered and marched toward the British, who opened fire. The militiamen marched on and fired back. The British were shocked and ran away in panic. After the battles of Lexington and Concord in the north, North Carolina militia Captain Francis Marion led resistance to the British in the south.
Francis Marion was in charge of the North Carolina state militia. When the southern colonies were invaded by the Brits, most of the colonial soldiers fled to the north. However, Francis Marion banded together the remaining soldiers and trained them properly. He marched his men to different British contingents in South Carolina and ambushed the Brits regularly. After an ambush, Marion and his men would retreat into the swamps. In this way, Marion earned the nickname the Swamp Fox because he was nearly uncatchable. Now let's see a little of Francis Marion in action.
Here we have Francis Marion fleeing British Sir Benadigan. Let's see how this goes.
I'm gonna get you! You got away again. I'm far too pretty to be going into that mess.
Francis Marion was also great at ambushing and, in the meantime, stealing British supplies to use for the American forces, and, in the meantime, disrupting British personnel. Now, let's see what he does here.
Oh, what a rude awakening. Ah! Screw my hair.
Here's Francis Marion executing an ambush from the city on a road along the city of Charleston to Philadelphia. The audio.
Score one for the British there.
Good.
Wow.
Alright, very good. Hope you've enjoyed Francis Marion and Sir Bananigan.